everyone, it's Holly and I'm back with another Smash or Trash. I totally thought by filming in the afternoon that Murphy would just not come because it's his nap time. He naps during the day. He usually comes out around 3:34 to meow at me, but no, he has decided to visit. Would you like to say hi? Can I pick you up? Can you say hi? Say hi! Oh, you're shy? Okay. Anyways, this is a new Smash or Trash video. Oh my gosh, my feet are ticklish. Please don't lick me. And today we're going to talk about Beauty and the Beast. So, last time I did Emma, so it was one specific book or story, and now we're going to talk about a fairy tale, a folk tale, something that is across cultures and across thousands of years of storytelling. If you are new here, Smash or Trash is an aggressively worded series that I've started on my channel where I comment on retellings and adaptations of stories, so individual books like Emma or fairy tales like Beauty and the Beast. I'm going to try and alternate between the two. So this will be a long video. I will put timestamps down in the description below in case you want to check out like only specific adaptations or retellings. Also, I know that there are very famous, especially retellings I have not discussed. I will probably do a part 2 to this at some point. But things had to be cut. Like, I couldn't do everything because Beauty and the Beast is hella popular. So some just like loose background information about the series. A retelling for me is generally going to be anything written, and an adaptation is going to be anything on film. And the retellings I'm going to talk about today are Soul in Darkness by Wendy Higgins, When Beauty Tamed the Beast by Eloisa James, Firelight by Kristen Callahan, Winter Song by S.J. Jones, and Bollywood and the Beast by, I can't remember their name. I will put it here. But I picked these because I thought it was a nice variety of genre, age group, so I thought that they would be interesting to compare. And then for adaptations, I'm going to talk about the animated Beauty and the Beast by Disney. And then lastly, Shrek, which some people may not think of as Beauty and the Beast retelling, but my personal opinion is it is one. So let's get into it. So Beauty and the Beast is probably one of the most popular fairy tales or folk tales. It's definitely one you see a lot of when it comes to retellings, and it's very popular. I do think its popularity today is strongly inspired by the Disney animated film. I think that a lot of people who especially are writing YA right now were exposed to that. I think Belle's library may have a part to do with that. I know I love the library. I live for the library. And I think a lot of bookish readers, bookish people and readers feel the same way. So you have like this connection to her. But it has always been fairly popular in Western and Anglo-American cultures, although Beauty and the Beast stories do show up across non-Anglo-American or non-Anglo cultures. Most people, like I said, are exposed to it from the Disney film, which is strongly influenced by the De Beaumont version of this story. I think that's a lot of what people think of as Beauty and the Beast. It is kind of like when we go through these, you'll see that a lot of them have strong references to that story, and I think in a lot of ways that's because they're either pulling on that particular fairy tale or they're pulling on inspiration from the Disney film, which is strongly inspired by that fairy tale. So it has that, but it's actually much older than the 1700s when she wrote that story. It's part of a long history of folktales, many of which were only ever told through oral tradition and not told in like a written format. A lot of people will classify this as the Beast as bridegroom like story type and archetype. That's what you see a lot in fairy tales and folk tales, is that there's these, even if they don't have the same names, they have the same themes that they're addressing, and this is the one for Beauty and the Beast. Although I will say that in my experience, the stories do have female beasts, probably a little less than the male, but pretty often. So some scholars say, and I personally agree with them, that the oldest known tale of this story is actually the Cupid and Psyche myth from ancient mythology. And I will leave a link to a website where you can actually read that story if you would like to check it out. I will also be talking specifically about a Cupid and Psyche retelling in this video. I've personally read a ton of fairy tales, especially Beauty and the Beast. I actually took a fairy tales class when I was in college, and I had to do a project on Beauty and the Beast. Wish I still had that computer so I could have all the reference material I used for this video, but it's fine. I'm sure it would have been outdated. That was like 2009. Although I did use some of my scholarly sources that I kept from that class to inform me in the filming and like the outlining and creation of this video. That's also where I got the majority of my Beauty and the Beast stories. I read over 10 of them from all around the world, and even though I read them in college, I did reread them specifically for this video. So I'll make some observations about things that I saw that were similarities across these, because they're not all the exact same story, obviously. So most of them, they all have a forced marriage or some sort of relationship between your two characters. It's always a male and female character. So Beauty, the Beauty character, we're just gonna call her Beauty because, I mean, honestly, that's what she's usually called. But she is often better than other girls and not like other girls. Good to know that trope was around hundreds of years ago. And many of them actually have happy endings. So not all fairy tales and all folk tales end happily. A lot of times they are lessons and they are learning moments. Not to say that Beauty and the Beast is not a learning story, but in a lot of these, the characters end happily if they act selflessly and behave appropriately. Like I said, their good behavior is often rewarded. The things that are often rewarded are selflessness, obedience. Obedience is a huge one across these, and that's regardless of gender. Both male and female characters are expected to be obedient, and general beautifulness. There is a lot of talk of beauty in all of these, like aesthetic outward beauty. So some of the folk versions of this tend to be a little more bawdy and graphic, and the women often fight back against the beastly husband. And generally, generally these stories explore the anxieties that women would have faced in historical times, and I'm sure to some extent now. So these anxieties around marriage. So I'm actually going to read you a quote from one of my books by Maria Tartar, who's the editor of this collection. And she says, "Many an arranged marriage must have seemed like marriage to a beast, and the telling of stories like Beauty and the Beast may have furnished women with a socially acceptable channel for providing therapeutic advice, comfort, and consolation." And then when it comes to things like de Beaumont's version of the story, it is almost explicitly, if not actually explicitly, written as a guide to young women who are going to be married to men that they don't know or are scared of. It is literally trying to tell them that, like, as long as you're good and obedient and you listen, you will get rewarded with like a man who loves you. I will also briefly address something, and that is a common complaint I hear about Beauty and the Beast. I hear this mostly in reference to Disney, and I know I'm like a Disney fangirl, so you may not value my opinion on this and you may think I'm biased. A lot of people seem to make this complaint primarily about Disney, and I think that that comes from a place of judgment and wanting to take down like a big company. And that is that the Beauty and the Beast story is about Stockholm Syndrome. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I don't consider myself an expert, and quite frankly, I actually looked for some information and I really couldn't find any like scholarly arguments. All I saw was like random articles complaining about Stockholm Syndrome in these stories, and I never really saw proof. And because I was like, convince me. So convince me if you think it is. But I don't think these stories are about Stockholm Syndrome. You can say that they have problematic elements, and maybe women shouldn't have been taught to just like be meek and just do whatever their husband wants them to do. We can have that argument, but I don't think it's Stockholm Syndrome. Also, I recently started watching a therapist on YouTube, and there's a lot of debate in the therapist community about whether or not Stockholm Syndrome is a real thing. So there's that too. We are all entitled to our opinions, so now let's get into the retellings. So now I want to talk about Firelight by Kristen Callahan. This is the first book in her Darkest London series. I think it's her debut novel as well. I have read Kristen Callahan's new adult historical paranormal romance. The heroine is very pretty, and she has some fire powers. Her name is Miranda. For the hero, something happened to him. His name is Archer, and he wears a mask. He wears Harlequin mask, which people seem to like. I mean, people are freaked out by him, but like if like a guy just walked around in a Harlequin mask, I would be like really freaked out personally. And he wears like a mask under his mask too, and people are afraid of him. I think he's nobility. I think he's a duke. I can't remember. I'm sorry. So people like, they kind of respect him because like they have to, but they're like petrified of him. They like run away when he shows up, all those things. But you don't know what's wrong with him, but he's definitely like monstrous. They meet each other at the beginning of a story like 4 years in the past, and he basically ends up buying her from her father. But he's very soft and kind to her. Like he says, like, obviously, like, I want to marry you, but if you really don't want to do it, then no, like, we won't do this, and I won't hurt your dad or whatever. He also tries to protect her from himself, which I feel like I see a lot of in Beauty and the Beast stories. She has 2 sisters, which is a common thing you see in Beauty and the Beast. However, in this story, her sisters are good, like they have a good, healthy relationship. A lot of time the sisters are like toxic people, or like it's basically, you see this a lot in fairy tales where like your heroine character is like the only good woman and pretty much every other woman is bad. You know, there's commentary to be had there. Miranda and Archer have to learn how to trust each other throughout this story, how to open up with each other. He doesn't know about her fire powers. She obviously doesn't know about whatever it is he's trying to hide with his mask wearing. As a book, I give this 3 stars. I think it's a little dry, and I think it's confusing. I think especially like the paranormal magical elements are not fully explored and explained. Now, it is part of a very long series, so perhaps things begin to make more sense along the series, but you need to give me like some laws here, like some magic laws to ground myself. Basically, Kristen Callahan withholds a ton of information from the reader throughout the majority of the book, and then in the last like 30 pages just like vomits information at you, and you're just supposed to like understand. I did not understand. But I think it's actually a fairly decent Beauty and the Beast retelling. So you can see the inspiration, especially from like what a lot of people I think would call like the canonical like Beauty and the Beast story. You have some of the same character types, you have some of the same themes, you have some of the same character growth, but she does make it her own story, which I've said in the past I think is key to having a really good retelling, is not having it just be like a beat for beat replay. Because why would I read it then? Like, I want you to make it your own. It's like a romance. You know there's going to be a happily ever after at the end. So you need me to enjoy the journey to that ending, you know? But overall, it is a weak story. I would read more in the series. That's not what this video is about, but I would read more at some point, but I'm not like clamoring to read more right now. Smash or trash? It's a very mediocre smash. So now we're going to talk about When Beauty Tamed the Beast by Eloisa James. And this is the second book in her fairy tales series, retellings series. Like, that's like literally what the series is called. Each book follows or like retells a different fairy tale. The first one is Cinderella, this one is Beauty and the Beast, there's the Princess and the Pea, Rapunzel, the Ugly Duckling, all of these things. It is historical romance, but I actually think this is set during a specific time, but a lot of times her books almost take place in like a non-time period. I kind of like it. And while these books are all fairy tale retellings, they don't like interact really with each other. I don't think they interact at all, but it's been a while since I read the rest of them. The hero is Piers, and he was injured as a child. You do figure out how. So he has a limp and a cane. He's also very grumpy. If you like grumpy heroes, you'll probably like Piers. He is very obviously and very openly, by Eloisa James herself, inspired by Dr. House from the TV show House. The cane, you know. I think his injury is actually the same injury, like technically. Like, it's weird because obviously like this is historical, so you don't have like the scientific knowledge. He's also a doctor, and he's a moody doctor. And he has like interns kind of with him and everything. The heroine, Lynette, I always said Lynette, but I listened to the audiobook and the narrator said Lynette, so okay, you English people, no offense, but the way you pronounce things is very weird to me. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I saw somebody on TikTok say that to somebody who was teaching people how to pronounce Irish names, and I'm like, you do realize there's different languages, right? But for some reason English is just like, I'm like, we speak the same language. But whatever. She's gorgeous. That's like what she is known for. They are forced together because her family thinks she's pregnant. She's not, but they think she is, and his parents, like his dad specifically, thinks he can't have kids because of his injury, so they're like, perfect solution. Of course she's not pregnant, so not necessarily perfect solution, but they grow to love each other. So personally, I really like this book. I've read it multiple times. I think that the fairy tale series is probably my favorite Eloisa James series. I don't love every Eloisa James book I read, but with this series I like or love all of them. I give it 4 stars. I like the characters. I love the romance. I love the journey they go on. I love all the medicine stuff, like all that information that she throws in there. Eloisa James is great at doing stuff like that. However, I don't particularly think this is a good Beauty and the Beast retelling. It doesn't have a lot of those story beats, the story themes, beyond her being a beauty and him being injured, which I guess makes him a beastly character. There is like a transformation. He transforms like through her love, but like, isn't that all grumpy hero romance? And she goes through her own transformation as well, which you don't normally see in a Beauty and the Beast story. Actually, her transformation, I'll tell you, I mean, maybe this is a spoiler, but I don't know, this book's been out forever. She gets sick and ends up like basically losing her beauty in a lot of ways, and has to deal with what that means. And I think that's an interesting conversation to be had, and it's one of the things I love about this book. I don't think it's particularly a Beauty and the Beast retelling, like a very good one. And Eloisa James herself, in her author's note or acknowledgements, whatever it was, at the end basically acknowledges this. It's more of like a house fan fiction, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, than it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So, smash or trash? Trash, but it's still a good book and a good romance. So now we're going to talk about Soul in Darkness by Wendy Higgins. So this is a new adult fantasy or paranormal romance, and it is a standalone, and it is very specifically a Cupid and Psyche retelling. So that is how it's pitched. Also, the characters are literally Cupid and Psyche. Some background: Psyche is a beautiful princess, and her people kind of stop worshiping the gods, and especially Venus, and instead start worshiping and praising her. And while she doesn't feel comfortable about this and she doesn't approve of it, nobody else seems to think it's a problem, including her parents. And Venus, as per usual, gets angry and jealous, and so she chooses to punish Psyche's people and then eventually punishes Psyche. So she's forced to marry a monster that she cannot see and go to this like other world, basically, to kind of atone or make up to like protect her people. There are a ton of rules that she has to follow, and a lot of those rules are things that like she doesn't fully understand. So like she can't touch her husband because like he's invisible, but like he's still there, obviously. So like he can touch her, but she can't touch him, and like he can't explain to her why she has to follow all of these rules. She's not allowed to return home, all of those things. Over the course of the story, especially the first half, it's kind of split into two parts. She grows to really care about her husband. She has two sisters who are, especially one of them is particularly jealous of her. This is pulled directly from the source material. And just like a lot of your Beauty and the Beast retellings and stories, they basically get her to break the rules, and then there's a larger punishment, and there must be more, and she must redeem herself in some way to get her happily ever after. I don't want to go into like too much detail. I mean, it is very much so the source material, so if you have read the Cupid and Psyche story, you know where this story is going to go, but still, I'm gonna try to abstain from like being too spoilery. So like I said, this is super strict with the source material. I remember reading it for the first time because I reread it for this and being like, yes, that is the Cupid and Psyche story. This is very accurate. So it's very strict and follows that story, but obviously it is much longer, so you have more character development instead of things just being kind of told to you. Things go into more detail. You obviously it has sexual content in it, things like that. So it is the same story, but it's more fully developed and fleshed out. So is it a smash or a trash? This one is like hard because part of me wants to say, oh, it's a smash because I like Wendy Higgins, and I gave the book 4 stars in case you were wondering, the first read and the second read. Second time I listened to the audiobook, it's on Audible Escape. But because in the past I have said that if you don't make it your own, it's not a smash, I have to say it's trash because I gotta be consistent. So it is very accurate, but I think a retelling should have more of your own story and some sort of change to it. So trash, but still a decent book. I still really enjoy it. So now let's talk about Bollywood and the Beast by this woman whose name I don't know how to pronounce. Sulika Snyder? I will try to figure it out. This is book 3 in her Bollywood Confidential Contemporary Romance series. I've only read this one because it came up on a list on Goodreads of Beauty and the Beast retellings. I will say I gave this 2 stars, although my rating has nothing to do with whether or not this is a good or bad retelling. That is never a factor in these videos. It has to do with if it's a good retelling or not my enjoyment level. I have no idea why this was included on a list of Beauty and the Beast retellings. Okay, so that's not 100% true. I see some reasons. One, the title. A title does not make a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Please see When Beauty Tamed the Beast by Eloisa James, where I made the same comments, I'm pretty sure. So the hero character he's grumpy and he is scarred. He was injured, I think while filming a video or a movie. I can't even remember. Because he was a Bollywood actor, and the heroine is a Bollywood actress, and she's actually American Indian, and she like goes to Bollywood. There's like some drama there where people say like she shouldn't be there because she doesn't really speak like Hindi and all these things. They talk about roses. He has a rose garden. And they reference the Beauty and the Beast story. Like, he talks about himself like he's the Beast and he's gonna ruin her and stuff. But for me personally, a scarred hero and a wordplay title does not make a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I love a good damaged character, but I don't think every book that has a damaged character is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, if that makes sense. So honestly, I'm gonna cut this one short and just say smash or trash. Trash. It's not a good retelling. I don't think it was ever meant to really be one. It should never have been on the Goodreads list. That's it. Okay. So now I want to talk about Winter Song by S.J. Jones. So this is book 1 in the Winter Song duology. It is a young adult fantasy series. It does have some sexual content in it. Personally, I was not bothered, but warning in case you cared. I give it 4 stars, maybe more of a 3.5, but I don't do half stars, so it gets 4. It follows Liesel, who is a young German girl. She really likes to compose music, but her family focuses on her brother, to have him, for him to be kind of like the musical genius of the family and actually accomplish things. She and her sister end up getting caught, and then she and her sister end up getting caught up with the Goblin King, and she sacrifices herself to free her sister from the control of the Goblin King. Now, this was on a list of Beauty and the Beast retellings, but I have also seen other people compare it to The Labyrinth, which honestly I've only seen once, and I was like 8 or something, so I honestly can't comment on it as a Labyrinth retelling. Just because like I know like nothing about that movie. And it's also been compared to The Cruel Prince, which I do see the similarities there as well. It's definitely slower in my opinion, but you would probably still enjoy this. And actually it kind of, even though I haven't read The Kingdom of Back yet, it gave me Kingdom of Back feels from what I know about that story, and so I'm curious when I do read that to see how similar they actually are. Ooh, this one's hard to talk about as an adaptation for 2 reasons. So the first is that I don't want to spoil it. I don't mind spoiling older books, and I don't mind spoiling a romance novel in a lot of ways, because like for the most part you know what's gonna happen in a romance novel. But this one, so much of the Beauty and the Beast kind of elements are tied into spoilers. And then the second reason is because I think I honestly have to read the second book in this duology in order to have a fully formed opinion on whether or not this is a good retelling. That's my fault that I didn't like make that assumption. I guess I should have just assumed that would be the case. I should have known better. But I just didn't have the time to buy the sequel and read it in time for this video. This video is already going to go up later than I wanted it to. Maybe that means I should have just done it. I don't know. I will say I have a lot of the base elements that you find in Beauty and the Beast stories. You have that selfless sacrifice for a loved one. You have marriage to a beast. Liesel does basically get married to the Goblin King. There's rules and magic that has to be followed almost unquestioningly, which I think you see a lot. And there's this like potential spoiler, but like it's in Beauty and the Beast, so you should kind of expect it to happen. There's a leaving the beast element to the story. So I do plan on reading the second one. Like I said, I just didn't have time to get it done right now before this video could be completed. So I do plan on doing a follow-up to Beauty and the Beast because there are a ton of other retellings I would really like to talk about in relation to this fairy tale. And so I will just do kind of a follow-up on this in relation to like if I think this duology as a whole, how it holds up as a retelling. But for now, I'm going to give it a tentative smash. To be continued. So now let's talk about the 1991 animated film adaptation of Beauty and the Beast by the Walt Disney Pictures Company. So, one, I think I said this earlier in the video, that this is definitely the most popular Beauty and the Beast adaptation. I would hazard a guess that at least in Western culture, or at least in the US and Canada, this is the first exposure to Beauty and the Beast that anyone has. It may be the only exposure to Beauty and the Beast that anybody has. So this one is very clearly an adaptation of the de Beaumont version of the story. And as a little aside, in my opinion, a lot of retellings that you see out there are typically retellings of either this version, the de Beaumont, or more specifically, they are retellings of this film. So a lot of people, this is their cornerstone for Beauty and the Beast, and it's also the one that they want to adapt. And I'm sure for books and stuff, I'm sure a huge factor in that is that a lot of readers have a huge love of Belle because of her love of reading, and the library. I think the library has a really big impact on readers and authors, and so it kind of makes sense that it's the one that they would gravitate towards. So I'll be honest, this is definitely one of my favorite Disney movies. I know that's a hot take. But it's definitely one of my favorites, especially in like the big popular ones. It is definitely one of my favorites, but this period of Disney film is incredibly popular for a reason. It was the Disney Renaissance, but that's not what this video is about. It has some music from true geniuses, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, R.I.P. Howard. And it has one of my favorite lines in all film. But let's discuss it as an adaptation. So, similarities that this version has with the source material, especially the de Beaumont version of Beauty and the Beast. There's a close relationship between Belle, or Beauty, and her father, Maurice in this case. She takes his place from being imprisoned by the Beast. The Beast allows her to return home after they build a relationship in order to make her happy. She is tricked / forced to stay home, in turn hurting the Beast. Patience and selflessness are ultimately rewarded with a happily ever after. So, changes. This one's kind of weird, but I'm going to point it out, is the rose. So the rose actually plays a fairly big part in the original story, and that the rose, the taking of a rose by the father, is what kind of is the catalyst for this whole story. However, here the rose instead serves as a symbol of Beast's time. It's an example of passage of time. It's a magical rose. When the last petal falls, everything is like, the curse can no longer be broken, and it is permanent. Its purpose has changed, but a rose still figures into the story. Also, there are tons of side characters. In the original, really, you just have Beauty, Beast, the father, and Beauty's sisters. Here you have a lot of other side characters, and you mainly have outside villain characters like Gaston. And I guess LeFou, is he a villain? I mean, I guess technically, but... And in general, these side characters and outside villain just help flesh out the story and takes it from like a 5-page short story. Maybe that might be generous. I don't even think it was that long. To a, oh, hello, sir. But these editions allow the movie to be about 90 minutes long, a full-length feature film. And it just adds overall depth. It allows Beauty to be a more developed character, as well as Beast to be a more developed character. It also just makes it more entertaining with, you know, singing candlesticks and clocks and teapots and whatnot. So yeah. So smash or trash? Smash, obviously. Like I would ever say this was trash. This is an amazing adaptation. It holds up and it proves itself, and my buddy Codsworth does not get enough respect.
I've never felt this way about anyone. I want to do something for her. But what?
Well, there's the usual things: flowers, chocolates, promises you don't intend to keep.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Shrek, which is a 2001 animated film from DreamWorks Animation. And you might be thinking to yourself, Holly, Shrek is not a Beauty and the Beast retelling or adaptation. Let me tell you, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But let's go on a journey and see if we think it might be, okay? So some background in case you didn't know, Shrek is actually based on a book of the same name. It is by William Steig. I definitely think you're gonna have to like go with me on this one, but I still stand by it. I think college Holly believed in this more than now Holly does, but I'm still gonna try and make it work, okay? So I will honestly say I do not think that Shrek was meant to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling or adaptation. I think it's a parody and commentary on a lot of fairy tales and fairy tale adaptations, especially mocking Disney films, because Katzenberg may be a little bitter about his treatment at the Walt Disney Company. Some people say that Shrek is meant to look like Michael Eisner. You decide. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to discuss company politics at Walt Disney Company. If you're curious about company politics at the Walt Disney Company, I highly recommend Waking Sleeping Beauty. It's a documentary and it is on Disney Plus. Disney was actually very open in discussing a lot of drama during that that documentary, which I really appreciated. Highly recommend. Anyways, so why do I think Shrek is an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast? I will say I'm not the only one that thinks this. There are some other people who agree with me, who think that it's a Beauty and the Beast adaptation or kind of inspired by Beauty and the Beast, but they all think that Shrek is the Beast character, and I disagree. I think Fiona is the Beast character. So part of this, like part of my reasoning, is because Fiona is the cursed character here. She is the one who is cursed, not him. Not that that's like necessarily the case. There's other retellings where sometimes, or source material where like they're both cursed or whatever. She's also the one who ultimately has to undergo the transformation, physically and emotionally. Now, that's not to say Shrek doesn't go through a transformation. Emotionally, he does. He opens himself up a little bit. He grows, he changes, he learns how to accept people into his home and his heart and all of that. But I think that her transformation is the bigger and more powerful one in the story. I remember seeing this for the first time and being really moved by her change and her acceptance of, I'm gonna spoil Shrek, y'all, it's been out for almost 20 years. If you don't know how Shrek happens, like, that's not my fault, okay? But her accepting of her ogre self instead of her more pretty human princess self. And she's changed by the love of Shrek and Donkey, I think. I think Donkey plays a role in her changes as well. a lot of what you see in here is this idea of society putting pressure on people, especially Fiona, of what beauty is and what it means to be a certain type of person and what is valued and important. And she goes on this journey to learn what is important. And it's not that she loves Shrek in spite of his hideousness. She loves herself. And that is what I think is her important transformation. So, it is definitely a fractured fairy tale. I think pretty much anyone would agree with that. It plays with your expectations of the genre and everything. But I still stand by my Beauty and the Beast retelling theory. I still think it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and and Fiona is the Beast, and she goes on this amazing transformation journey. And there is a history in folklore of a woman being the Beast character. So there is nothing wrong there. It fits. So, smash or trash. Y'all, I'm gonna say smash just to like support my argument, okay? And you can disagree with me. You can think it's not a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You can think it's not a good one. That's fine. That's your opinion. This is my opinion. I'm not sure I would ever write like a thesis on this. You know, that kind of thing. But I feel like I can stand by my Shrek as a Beauty and the Beast retelling argument. So, yeah. Thank you for joining me on my journey to explain that this is in fact a retelling. Also, can we talk about really quick the musical? The music. I love the music in the musical. It's awesome. It's so much fun. So those are my thoughts on all of these Beauty and the Beast retellings and adaptations. Like I've said probably 50 million times in this video, these are just my opinions, my thoughts. Do not be offended by them. And if you have differing opinions, feel free to share them. And I hope whether you agreed with me or not, you did enjoy this video, especially if you watched the whole thing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I do plan on doing another smash or trash in the winter, and that one will probably be Pride and Prejudice. That's my plan right now. And like I said, I will probably do a follow-up for Beauty and the Beast because there are so many other ones to talk about and discuss. So thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you next time. Bye. To a hair in my, excuse me, sir. Sure. No, can you not steal my pen? Say hi to the camera. Hi, I went to the vet, but I'm a healthy boy.